In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to use a clipping mask and how to use Alpha Lock. So I've selected just a basic square canvas, and I'm going to use my 6B pencil in black just to draw an outline of a flower that I'm going to color in. So I'm just making a basic kind of petal pattern, and I'll do another one here. So these are kind of soft poppy-like flowers, most probably. Right. So then I'm going to add a new layer, and I'm going to choose a very pale color. So I'm going to go for this pale pink, and I'm going to use a watercolor brush. So I really like this one, which I've borrowed from Liz Kohler Brown, and I've shared with the group. So what I'm going to do is set it a little lower, and I'm just going to color in this area of the petals, just roughly give it a kind of a watercolor wash so that I get an impression of petals, and I'll do both flowers like that. So just a very soft wash over this outline of my sketch layer. And then I'm going to add another layer, and I'm going to clip that layer to the layer below. And then I'm going to add a slightly darker color. So I think I'll go for, let's go for this color. And I'm going to just color this part, the lower part of the flower, just give it a little bit of definition here. And then I'm going to add another layer, and I'm going to clip that one too. So when I say clip, you can see there's an arrow. So what that means is this is the base layer that's got the basic color on it. Then I've added another layer, which I've clipped to that base layer. And now I'm adding a third layer, which I've clipped to this base layer as well. And I'm going to take quite a darker color, and I'm going to see, still using the watercolor brush, I'm going to see what that looks like. Oh, and it's actually not too bad. I quite like that. Gives a little bit of definition. So I'm going to get rid of my sketch layer and see what that looks like. Now, the advantage of using a clipping mask as opposed to Alpha Lock is that you can actually move these layers up and down. So in fact, that kind of looks nice to me, because this way, having this color on top looked a little bit artificial and heavy. So I think I'm going to move that one down so I get this soft impression. Now, what about my stem? I'm going to choose another color for that, and I'm going to use my favorite dry ink brush to draw that. So I'm just going to, whoops, wrong layer, rookie fault, rookie error, get rid of that. There we go, undo paint stroke. I meant to do it over here. So I've just added another layer, and that's not a clipping mask. I'm just going to draw it like this. It'll go under the petals, and I think I'm going to add some leaves as well, just so that it's got a nice composition. See if we can use the color fill to color that. Yet we can. So how does that look without the layers? Not too bad, but I want a little bit of definition on the leaves, and I'm not crazy about this dark color because it's showing underneath the watercolor. So I think I'm going to drop the opacity down. No, that doesn't work for me either. I might actually have to delete some of this. So I'm going to, sticking with my dry ink, I'm just going to get rid of that little bit there so that it's not so visible under the petal. And then I want my leaves to look a little aged, because this flower is kind of coming to the end of its life. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Alpha Lock this layer. Now, when you Alpha Lock something, it fixes your drawing only on that colored or painted part. And I want to add a little bit of texture. So I'm going to use a brush by Kat Coquillette. It's called a splatter brush. And I'm going to choose a kind of a yellowish color. And I'm just going to splatter across that. That's all that I wanted to do, just to get a little sense of aging on the stem and on the leaves. So there's my brush, sorry, my flower, and to repeat what I've done, I did a sketch layer, which was that one, and then I did a first layer, which was a very pale watercolor, and to that I added these two clipping masks to give that slight definition, and then I added my green leaves and stem, and I alpha locked them. Now that alpha locked color is kind of adhere to that, almost glue to that green. So it's unlike these where I can toggle the layers and move them up and down, in this case I can't. And just to finish this drawing off, I think I'm going to add another layer, and I'm going to use my nice watercolor brush, and I'm going to push it up as high as I can, and then I'm just going to do a little bit of a wash across the back so that it really does look a little bit like a watercolor. And I'm just going to paint that on to the background, and I love those drips, so it really looks like watercolor. And then I'm going to use my Gaussian blur just to give that a kind of a softer effect. And because it's fairly dark, I think I'm just going to lighten it so I get that nice, slightly aged color. And finally, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to combine all those layers of the flower, duplicate them so that they just get a little bit more definition. And there we go. I think that is a finished drawing.